The process for creating L.E.D Studios started with two design directions. First being this 90s TV guide where visitors could navigate different channels and hop in and out of multiple things that were happening on the site at once. Initial direction being that of HPOS, which is a bespoke operating system running the Heron-Preston ecosystem. HPOS was the route that ended up winning out. We're kind of excited by the idea of creating a hybrid of different iconic operating system tropes. Navigation would be instantly understood with no learning curves necessary. Everyone's already used to that kind of blended classic Macintosh design languages like Coverflow, a MacDoc, jailbroken iOS, Tweak Cydia, stuff like that. Another idea explored was that of a 3D environment.
Typically, when you scroll on a website, you're moving down the Y-axis and occasionally on the X-axis. But we were thinking perhaps you could navigate through the Z-axis and move forward and backward through the site.
This concept of our digital desktop is to mimic the physical ones we have, but instead of landing on a desktop, this OS replicated that more of like an office. So we didn't want the site to feel like it was all about productivity, so this new idea called the pegboard came about. It becomes more about creativity, organization, rather than productivity. Windows would snap to the pegboard.
You could still rearrange them.
Then that kind of spawned this new idea, which was that of a HUD, a heads-up display. We looked at references of both real ones from the past and things from movies. They're often on dark screens, but used just a few bright colors for the graphics. Ultimately, this ended up feeling just a little bit too static and not explorative enough. We still liked this idea of modules and kind of modularity, and so we started to build out what each section of the site might look like as a module. It was very blog-centric, and modules were created for blogging, for creating posts, for navigating the archives, as well as live streams, a chatbot, a guestbook and more. When this idea of a chatbot for the site came up from Heron and the conversation surrounding a global artificial intelligence for this site was formed, we were intrigued not only by this concept, but by the visuals that come from AI, self-driving cars, image recognition software and machine learning as well. Beyond that,
perhaps visitors can even interact with the site while watching
the site interpret the world around it. So with that, the OS sort of shifted into a window into parts of the world where you could watch HPOS interpreted surroundings. This was then fused with the modular idea from earlier in the process. They could pop up, either click on something, get the module, close it, drag it around, all that. But with all that thinking, and all those ideas, no matter how light or ambient the footage, the interface always felt slightly dystopian. So we thought this was because we're aiming the AI at humans, rather than spaces. We started to think about some appropriate interesting areas to aim for artificial intelligence. That brainstorming led us to this idea of a recycling center. We were calling it the Operations Overview Operating System. This is a system that is used to monitor and control a recycling facility that we would design from the ground up. And after all, this site was designed to be a place where visitors could donate clothing in exchange for Heron-Preston discounts as well as other sustainability initiatives. There was this schematic overview of the facility that visitors could pan around, spin, click through to navigate. They could swap between cameras to see different parts of the space. So then portions of the site would be mapped to different areas of the facility. For example, the guestbook might be in the lobby, donations might be in the processing area where they're processing the recycling pieces, etc. This is nice because the AI played a slightly more hopeful role here. But again, after all these sketches, design, and conceptual changes, the idea itself and the visuals still felt a little bit too dark. There's that air of slight dystopianism. So, kind of a new turn that the project started to take was when Heron sent through this sketch of this sort of orange glow, and it became the heart of the site. It was initially this element that maybe follows visitors around but eventually kind of just becomes like the identity of both the site and L.E.D Studio itself. So instead of modular windows being the main way to interact with the site to be explored using single images and icons, no boxes, no bounding strokes, or shapes, or modules upon first landing, almost felt formless. So as the site evolved, the visual world that we're building was feeling really good. It kind of needed to be something that could be built upon and expanded as needed. The idea of calling it Heron's Desktop came up as an element of structure and a way to call back to this original concept of HPOS, Heron-Preston Operating System. We played with this theme, but kind of with this refreshed visual world and perspective of lightness and slight shapelessness and formlessness. This brought a sense of refinement to the L.E.D studio look. The kind of final idea after all these sketches had been sent back and forth, many conversations had been had. Heron came to us with this reference of the Sony PlayStation 2 menu that looked like it had a memory card in it. There was this assortment of 3D objects all tilted at a slight angle towards the viewer. That felt really cool. So each feature and function of the site would get its own 3D icon. These included guestbook, live streams, donating, shop cart, X-ray, as well as the chatbot. In this final chatbot design, we built multiple emotions for different sections of the site. Then the chatbot was ultimately given the name Beep, based on community suggestions on Heron's Instagram. When Beep is typing or replying to you, there's a different expression. The guestbook became this kind of core experience of the site. Visitors could leave an auto-generated ID with their name, photo, and a message on this community globe wherever they placed it and wherever they said their location was. You could also then save the ID to the device, put it on their phone and place it on their Instagram story or something like that. The loading screen and identity became this orange glow kind of breathing and coming to life, almost like the OS is booting up. And we began to throughout the site use these transparent elements as a way to still feel like an operating system with depth, and with these modules and seeing behind the modules kind of gives a sense of that spaciousness and atmosphere. The final product page is a refined continuation of this clothesline idea that we toyed with earlier. The site can house live streams from Heron's YouTube, perhaps a Heron DJ set. The final product is this platform for Heron that will continue to be built on, adding community features and interactions that dive into topics of sustainability, creativity, explorations, and more.